CHGO Rank Week continues. It's the top 10 what-ifs in Chicago Bears history. CHGO Bears Podcast starts right now. Welcome into a special edition of the CHGO Bears Podcast as Rank Week continues. What if we did this show from a different studio for the first time?
I mean, I feel so honored that Harry Carey is over my right shoulder, Michael and Scotty, Ditka's, Buddy Ryan's, Jordan Cleveland,
Kevin Garnett.
This place is sweet.
Could just stare at that background the entire time. If you don't enjoy the show, you can just pick out all your favorites behind us.
Remember when we had teams
Pretty
that
sweet.
win?
Including whatever that is.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is that?
That's good work.
Well,
I
sure.
don't-
Yeah.
That's Greg.
We're in our news. What do we call the studio, Steven?
I think we're calling it Studio West. I didn't come up
That
with
makes
it.
a lot of sense. You know, we had Studio A, Studio B, Studio West.
Yeah.
Just go to West.
Listen, we're just gonna. All we do is build studios around here. I can't wait for the next one to be built.
Oh, it's being built right now in the Hoge Mansion. So, actually, it's not. So we better get started.
Training Camp Hoge Studio, fired up. Let's go. We're all gonna come to Adams. What's up, Krista?
That's all coming next week. And
We apologize.
So is the relaunch of Hogan John's on Monday.
Bang, 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 bang,
Way,
bang.
Get those diehard deals right now. Available. All of John's awesome content. I love how motivated he is right now.
Butter on a roll. Stacey King's fired up for the show. Let's go.
Johnsy's killing it. He's going to be a part of all our coverage coming up as training camp gets underway. Officially report day on Tuesday. So we got a lot coming up. Become a diehard if you're not already for some reason. Get the sweet Hogan John's shirt or the hat. If you want to go, the hat looks awesome. So I would recommend that one. All right. So what we're doing here on this special show, been doing this all week with CHGO. We're ranking the top what-ifs in all of our teams' histories, but we had the great pleasure of doing the Chicago Bears, the team we cover on a daily basis here on this show. So we got the top 10 what-ifs in Chicago Bears history, and there's no question number 10 should be on this list. What if the Chicago Bears had hired Bruce Arians instead of Mark Trestman back in 2013? Bruce Arians, true story. Bruce Arians told the story on CHGO, on the show once at the Super Bowl. He was over at a hotel nearby in Lake Forest, thought he was getting the job, and in the middle of the night, I believe Brad Biggs broke the story that Bears hired a coach from the Canadian Football League.
Wow.
Yeah. Look, that team was set up to do it offensively. The defense was going south. But Mark Trestman was the weirdest coach in the history of the Chicago Bears. Almost as weird as the weirdest general manager in the Bears and Phil Emery. So none of this went well. I remember when they were 3-0, that was sweet. So this is a hard question to answer because there was talent there. Bruce Arians is very skilled at getting the most out of his talent. So, I mean, to me, those are playoff teams at bare minimum. If not, going deep into the playoffs, assuming that you get the health late into January and I don't know, even February.
Well, I mean, when you saw the transformation the Arizona Cardinals had under Bruce Arians and Kurt Warner having kind of a second renaissance of his career, one of the most exciting Super Bowls in NFL history, the Cardinals and the Steelers trading punches at the end of that game. Obviously you put Bruce Arians with Jay Cutler and all the ability that Jay had with his cannon of an arm. I think Bruce Arians certainly would have known how to get the most out of that offense with Matt Forte, Martellus Bennett, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall. I mean, they had it all. And, Bruce Arians. Mark Trestman certainly got a lot of offensive production in that first year, most I've ever seen as a Bears fan, but I think Bruce Arians certainly would have been a little more sustainable.
Well, and it was the toughest situation to just step into because they loved Lovey, and from Lance Briggs, who works with us on down, they did not want him out the door. So it was tough to navigate it, but maybe Bruce could have done a little better. What are you pointing at over there?
Oh, that I think the Super Bowl Braggs was talking about was well before Bruce Arians got there.
Whoops.
Well, let's get to number 9 then.
I was trying to show it to him so he could save himself.
No, it's fine.
But Carm just had to,
Number 9.
bring it up. No, I want to talk about number 10. I covered that season.
Yeah.
I get to talk about number 10.
I just sworn he was the coach.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were right, but I was just going to let it go because you're adorable and sweet.
I was like, I'm pretty sure Kurt Warner was maybe going in the Hall of Fame while Bruce Arians was the head coach there. Whatever. Okay, here's what matters. I think when you look, there's no question the offense actually got better under Mark Trestman. But when you see what Bruce Arians has done with quarterbacks and offenses, I feel like at least a similar projection could have been made on that side of the ball. I think the real question here is the things that, especially, Greg, you've heard from Lance Briggs, we all have, but especially you doing the show with him, that Trestman just couldn't command the locker room, the meeting room. I've always maintained this. I think any coach that came in for Lovie Smith with that defense was going to have a hard time winning over that group.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that includes Bruce Arians, actually. I think it would have gone a lot better, but I still think it would have been a problem. Now, he brought in Todd Bowles to be his defensive coordinator in Arizona. And I think there's a decent chance that would have been the hire in Chicago, too. And Todd Bowles over Mel Tucker, yes, please. But that would have been a significant stylistic scheme change, too. So, however, in hindsight, I almost feel like that would have been better. Remember, when Mel Tucker came in, he tried to learn the existing defense instead of installing his own defense.
That was bizarre.
And so even though that would have brought a lot of change, in hindsight, I think we saw that defense was probably ready for some change, too. Right. Just where some of those guys were in their careers, and Urlacher only made it one more season. So, actually, he didn't even play in that 13th season. That's when he was forced out. Going into that year. So maybe does Urlacher play on that team if different, there's so many what ifs there. That's why we're doing this. So I guess my conclusion is I think it goes better. I think maybe the Bears get over the hump and make the playoffs in 13 instead of collapsing the way they did at the end of the season. And I think Bruce Arians certainly would have had more than a 2-year run. On the other hand, Phil Emery might have been the GM a lot longer.
That's possible, too, and Josh McCown might have just been inserted as the starting quarterback. I like to go down there because Bruce Arians knows what the hell he's doing, and he wouldn't have taken a guy out who was throwing, 20 touchdown passes against 1 interception and gone back to Cutler when the entire team wanted McCown to play. But
are you going to somehow bring Josh McCown into all of these?
I'll do my best.
Yes.
I guarantee you he would have lasted more than the 2 years that Mark Trestman lasted. But go ahead.
All right, number 9. What if Gale Sayers had stayed healthy?
With a picture of Cutler.
For this one, we go to our resident Bears historian, Mark Carman.
So let's talk about this because everybody knows about the 6 touchdowns that Gale scored in one football game, at one of the greatest performances in the history of the NFL. Tragically, knee injury, cutting short his career. Gale Sayers was Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan arrived in town. He was for you, he was Devin Hester before Devin Hester times 10 because he was also a running back and just nobody in the NFL had ever run that way at that point. So the problem with that team is, the Bears won the NFL championship in 1963. Sayers and Butkus were drafted in 65. That team never, and got anywhere close to the mountaintop again. So as far as them winning games, it's hard to say anything would have happened because the Bears were pretty dysfunctional at that time. However, could he have gone down as the all-time leading rusher in the history of the NFL? I wouldn't take that off the table at all. Gale Sayers absolutely could have had that award. He didn't run like Jim Brown back in the day, 5 yards a carry, but he was way more elusive, the most exciting thing ever to touch a football. Wrigley Field has never seen anything better. So I think that Gale Sayers, if he had played a full career, could have gone down as the NFL's all-time leading rusher and returner and all of it. He was that good.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Devin Hester before Devin Hester. I mean, I think his reputation precedes him. He makes the Hall of Fame even with the shortened career, and I think that speaks volumes to how the league felt about him and what he could have been and what he was.
Yeah, and look, the Bears were just, I mean, at that time, George Allen was, you talk about that. We always talk about head coaches. George Allen was a killer leading that team, and when he left, that the franchise literally did not recover until Mike Ditka got there. So I'm not sure about the winning, but the numbers he would have put up would have been extraordinary.
It's kind of like Derrick Rose, right? The Derrick
very
Rose
similar.
of football.
Yeah.
And he made the Hall of Fame. And I don't know if Derrick's going to get in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I know basketball Hall of Fame is a little different because it's your entire basketball career, not just your NBA career. But
it's similar in that Derrick's the youngest MVP in the history of the game, and Gale's the youngest Hall of Famer to go in. So that
well, and also the excitement factor
of
it. Like, I mean, I think probably more people watching the show can relate to watching Derrick Rose than watching Gale Sayers. But if you can think of how good and exciting Derrick was when he came on the scene, and how, like, for me, I always go to that eye test of, can you afford to look away from your television? And we always talk about that in the sense of with Devin Hester. Like, you never want to miss a Devin return ever. And when I was watching the Bulls with Derrick Rose, it was the same thing. Like, you knew he was going to be out there the entire time, and you didn't know what he was going to do that was going to make Stacey King lose his mind.
Right.
And so that, I think, is a very similar way of discussing how exciting Gale Sayers was. It just didn't last long enough.
Right. And it's almost, and with all due respect to D Rose, it's almost disrespectful to Gale to compare him to bring up Derrick and not MJ, which last one on this. When Jordan got hurt his second year, broke his foot, and he missed 64 games, all I heard, because I got a brother 20 years older who saw Sayers never be the same. He's like, I don't know if I'll ever be the same. Like, he put the fear of just straight terror that Jordan's career would be over because he witnessed it. It was that impactful on him. So for all the old hats out there, Gale was the best.
All right, number 8 on the list. What if the Houston Texans had lost that game that gave the Bears the number 1 overall pick in 2023? So, again, that was week 18 of the 2022 season. Just an insane ending, the 4th and 20, 4th and 25, whatever it was.
It was a miracle.
And of all people, Lovie Smith was on the winning side of that game.
Thank you, Lovie.
That helped the Bears get the number 1 pick, which then Ryan Poles traded for DJ Moore and a slew of picks, which then eventually led to Caleb Williams. We should actually probably have the whole list in front of us right now, and I think about it. Can you guys name everybody in that?
Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, Caleb Williams.
Doesn't Torrey Taylor get a 4th-round pick in there somehow?
Who's the second? What second-round pick is included in that this year, right?
That's right.
Javon Dexter?
Well, no, I'm saying
they got
this year.
Right. Is it the traded back second-round pick?
We'll just call Luther Burden for simplicity. That's
it's
fine.
a lot, though, that came from the result of one game. Now, on the other hand, the Bears still would have had the number 2 pick.
Which is what I'm about to argue. Like, possibly it could have worked out actually better because they would have had the 2 pick, and then they would have taken CJ, and they might have traded Justin, and they'd have a better quarterback than what they have right now. You could, at least to this level of accomplishment, what CJ did his rookie year, you could postulate that the Bears might have been bold and drafted CJ. I don't think they would have done that because they were committed to Justin, but it would have been on the table.
They could have even gone the Will Anderson route.
Yep.
Fix the edge rusher problem they had.
I think they still would have traded back. That was where the franchise was in that spot. 1 or 2 wasn't going to change their direction. They still wanted to figure out who Justin was. I'll say this much. What if that had not happened? Well, then one of our most epic moments in CHGO Sports studio history would have never happened. And you can still find that video from our reaction there, Corey.
When you humped the bear?
I humped a bear. We all lost our mind. And the significance of that moment, I mean, you just didn't want to jinx it as it was unfolding in front of you. You just couldn't
think it was possible.
It wasn't possible. I mean, it was a miracle. And the thing for me that resonated for me as a Bears fan, That never happens for us. It's always we're one pick short of glory. We're one pick short of Aaron Donald. We're always, it never works out for us. We take Mitch Trubisky instead of Deshaun Watson or even a Patrick Mahomes. It's like we're never on the right side of history, and there's still a lot of story to be told from how this all started, that Lovie Smith created this trickle-down effect that's kind of led to where we're at now for the Chicago Bears franchise. But for one moment in time, something actually went right for the Chicago Bears in a big, big way.
Yeah. I think in terms of where this is on the list, it's fair. It should be on the what if list. It's a big one, especially just the way that game ended.
I mean, it's been a long franchise. You could do a separate top 10 of everything we did here.
I just don't know. We just don't know enough of the outcome yet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's fun to think about.
We wouldn't have Caleb Williams, that's for sure.
That's true. All right, we'll take our first time out here and come back with at least our next 3 as we continue on the top 10 what-ifs in Chicago Bears history on the CHGO Bears podcast. But first, here we go. Bet 365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. New customers now get 150 bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code CHGO365, deposit 10, place a bet for 5, and you'll get 150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Right now with the MLB early payout offer,
Cubs.
That's the Bet365 early payout offer. You're a winner if your team goes up 5 runs ahead with an instant payout. Hey, that happened in the All-Star game. 5 runs up, you get an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selection. So, breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get 150 in bonus bets when you bet 5, win or lose. Sign up, use code CHGO365, deposit 10, place a bet for 5. You'll get 150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus if you or someone you know has a gambling problem. Crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER, in-app only.
I loved when I lived in Cook County, and I love still owning property in good old Cook County. And I also love when somebody helps me pay less in taxes, and that's what our friends at Own Well will do. You want to be paying attention now. We're about to save you some money. Yes, taxes are super expensive. Own Well is going to try to lower them for you. In Cook County, they have a 25% contingent fee, means that you only pay if your property taxes are reduced. So you go to Own Well, you say, hey, I'm paying too much. They do the work for you. If they lower it, then you pay them because you're saving money. That is a phenomenal deal. Put property tax money back in your pocket in just minutes. No stress, no big-time investment. 86% of Own Well's customers receive a deduction. So save money on your Cook County property taxes with Own Well. Sign up in less than 3 minutes. Start your appeal today. Ownwell.com/cook. That's OWNWELL.com/cook.
All right, let's recap what we got on the list of what-ifs so far. Number 10, what if the Bears had hired Bruce Arians instead of Mark Trestman in 2013? Number 9, what if Gale Sayers had stayed healthy? And number 8, what if the Houston Texans lost the game that gave the Bears the number 1 overall pick in 2023? And we keep the list rolling. And I think this is a big what if, because a lot of things would have changed. But number 7, what if Jay Cutler did not get hurt in the NFC Championship game back in January of 2011, which...
It's the last time the Bears won a playoff game.
Yeah. Also, I'd say, what if the Bears just won that last game of the season against the Packers, and the Packers didn't get in the playoffs,
right?
And then go on to win the Super Bowl after beating the Bears in the NFC Championship game.
Yep, let them in the back door. Yep. And paid for it.
I don't know. And again, so recap: he sprained his MCL in the middle of the game. Bears were down 14-0, and Caleb Haney played. And didn't Todd Collins get in there at some point, too?
Yeah, Todd Collins came in before Haney.
Yeah.
And I don't think Collins completed even one pass.
It was bad. It was horrible.
Imagine if they had Bajent.
And, yeah. And Johnny Jolly was his name, I think, picked off Haney for the pick six.
That sounds right.
That's just Hoge memory right there. I didn't even look that back up.
BJ Raji.
I was thinking he was Jolly.
Yeah, BJ.
So it was Raji. I was thinking that was before Raji.
Yep, remember he did the little hula dance.
Yeah, whatever. It was a big guy touchdown. Look, I don't know if you can really make a full argument the Bears win that game and come back with Jay Cutler. They obviously would have had a better chance, though.
Yep.
Yeah, Gregory, why don't you just get into your emotions here, because this is the closest you've been in your lifetime, and I feel like it's got to be very raw for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I was at that game, I definitely feel like the way the Bears hung in there and started to build a comeback, despite the fact that Todd Collins was in the game for a period of time, the Packers didn't run away with that game. And the Bears that season had really had some pretty impressive performances offensively with Jay Cutler and not the best receiving core, right? You had Earl Bennett and Devin Hester and Johnny Knox, but they were starting to click on all cylinders at the end of that year. I'll remind you, they played the Jets to end that year in Chicago, and the Jets at the time had Cromartie and Revis Island, and the Bears tore them a new one. So they were playing some really tough defenses and scoring points, and I think they would have been able to find a way to win that game, with Greg Olsen and everybody else leading the way, and Jay Cutler, obviously, with everything he could bring to the table. And I honestly think they could have beaten the Steelers in the Super Bowl that year. Steelers weren't really 100% going into that game. And, I thought they matched up well with the Steelers. I think it would have worked out to to a point where I think the Bears would have had a really, really real shot to win a Super Bowl. And it just didn't happen. And Jay Cutler, for everybody wanted to say, had MJD taking shots at him for not finishing the game with a torn MCL, and you see Cutler on the bike riding, and he takes a lot of heat for that. But, it was a disappointing finish to a season that, was the last one, that really had some Super Bowl true Super Bowl aspirations. I know double doink fans feel a certain way, but they didn't even win a playoff game.
Bottom line, it sucked. That's the closest they've been. And Caleb wasn't terrible. He had he moved the ball down the field. I had a big completion to Johnny
one
Knox.
touchdown and 2 interceptions in that game.
Yeah. It wasn't. I'm not saying it was great, but it wasn't. If Cutler's there, does he just play 3 times over him and they come back and win? You can't say that. But what you can say is that this is the closest they have gotten, and to not have Jay healthy for the entire football game at home flat out sucked, and it was just bad. It was bad Bears luck. And I think objectively, if the Bears play the Packers that year 100 times, the Bears probably win 70 of them. I think they were the better team. So you certainly can look at, we wouldn't be in the drought that we're in right now. Could they be in the Steelers and Roethlisberger and all that? Maybe. But you could certainly you can make a real legitimate argument that the Bears' drought of Super Bowls would have been over if he had stayed healthy.
And for me, the depression of it is my favorite Bears of all time. That was their last shot to win a Super Bowl. Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, Peanut Tillman, Devin Hester, and so so many others, and obviously Lovie Smith too. They deserved to win a Super Bowl in that run they had with Lovie Smith, and came close a couple times, but just couldn't get over the hump.
And there was a ton of narrative also at the time, by the way, that Cutler sucks. He quit on the team. He's not tough. You say whatever you want about Jay. Toughness was not his problem.
No, definitely not. And that was a lot of that was unfair in that game. But another close call. And speaking about the same players that Greg was just talking about getting the opportunity to win the Super Bowl, so we're bringing number 6 on our list. What if Tommy Harris and Mike Brown had played in Super Bowl 41? This one I actually have a pretty strong opinion on.
This is an easy one, in my opinion.
Look, there's a lot of aspects of this football game that you can't necessarily litigate if they just had 2 really good players on defense. Certainly it's possible the offense still stalls out the way they did. You can't just erase Cedric Benson's fumble in that game, and he obviously didn't play well. But they were winning 14-6. Mm-hmm. And even in that moment, you're still feeling pretty good, despite the fact that Rex Grossman was playing quarterback, because this defense was that good, and you could trust them even against Peyton Manning to get the job done with a lead in the first quarter. But as it turned out, they sort of ran out of gas because they were going up against an elite quarterback, and they didn't have two really good pieces. And, like, you know, if an outsider didn't really know that Chicago Bears team that well, like, okay, Tommy Harris and Mike Brown, like, these aren't Hall of Famers. But at that time in their career, when they were healthy, they sure as hell played like Hall of Famers. And they do make that big of a difference to me. And so I think you can make the case that if that first quarter plays out the same way, you get the opening kick from Astor, you score a touchdown, you're up 14-6, that defense whole doesn't blow it. Not to say they blew it, but they holds on to the lead. I think you can definitely make that argument.
Well, I mean, Peyton Manning in that game only had one touchdown and one interception, and that one touchdown was blown coverage, you know, and a guy getting over the top. Mike Brown, you know, likely is, you know, the center fielder there and make sure that doesn't happen. Not to mention the fact that when you talk about Tommy Harris, and we've mentioned Lance Briggs so many times here already on this show, hit to a man, Lance Briggs, Jason McKee, Jerry is all these guys. They say Tommy Harris was the best of the bunch. He just another guy. When you say Gale Sayers and his injury cut short, that's what happened with Tommy Harris. Or else Tommy is talked about among some of the best defensive tackles ever, especially in that Lovie Smith defense. He was the perfect 4-3 technique D tackle, unstoppable. You could double team him, still was going to create havoc, get in the backfield. And when you look at the damage that the running backs had in that game for the Colts,
ding.
You know, a guy like Tommy Harris would have been able to shut that down.
See, that's where. Well, okay, I was going the other way too. Like, if the defense is more solid, I think the Bears keep the ball on the ground. They should have kept it on the ground more. Period. Despite the fumble, I think maybe you get into a little bit more ball control. The defense doesn't have to do it as much, and they're also that much more rested with impact dudes. So no pushback from me that if you had both two guys impacting the field in two different spots, that the Bears could have won the football game, assuming that everything happened like what you said, Hoge, that you get the opening kickoff and all that type of stuff.
Well, look, I know from getting to know some of these guys very closely and spending some time with them, that it's when you talk about what ifs, I mean, I've literally sat at a table with Jason McKee, Rasheed Davis, and Olin Kreutz, and just sat there listening to them basically have that conversation.
Right.
Just like, what if this had happened? What if this had happened? Like, it still eats at them.
Of course.
That because it wasn't just one of those games where you come out and you're like, you know what, we made it all the way, we gave a good effort, and we ran into a buzzsaw in the championship. You know, this isn't Purdue basketball.
Stop it. I will derail this whole thing.
Those guys, and I think we all feel the same way. There were certain things in that game and certain pieces that weren't there that really could have changed the outcome.
They won a game in the regular season where they were down 20-0 at halftime, and they didn't score an offensive touchdown. Yeah. They came back and won without scoring on offense. That's how good that defense was. And to miss Mike Brown and Tommy Harris, and they were still an elite defense without them, shows you just how dominant they would have been with them carried over into the postseason.
This show's getting more and more painful by the moment. What's next?
Yeah, it sure is. All right, let's go to number 5 on the list. What if Buddy Ryan doesn't leave to coach the Eagles after the 85 season?
Back in my childhood wheelhouse, I was 12 years old. That sucked, no doubt about it. The 46 with that crew was the greatest defense, in my opinion, ever play in the NFL. And Vince Tobin came in here and was way more conservative, so that did have an impact. I'm not going to say it didn't, and I suppose this belongs on the list. But if we're going back to that era, number one, the Bears let Wilbur Marshall go out the door, who arguably was their best linebacker because they had to have Mike Singletary as the highest paid guy. I'd say that had a bigger impact on the defense than even Buddy leaving. I'd also say that the biggest impact on that whole team was the fact that Jim McMahon could not stay healthy. And if you look back at that era, the Bears picked Willie Gault and Jimbo Covert in 1983. Jimbo Covert's a Hall of Famer. But if you tell me they draft Dan Marino that year or any of the quarterbacks in there, and you have a healthy quarterback leading that crew, I think they win multiple 2, 3, 4, 5 because the defense was still good. It's not like that defense felt they were going 14-2 with Mike Tomczak and Doug Flutie and playing quarterback. So it wasn't as sexy without Buddy, and it just wasn't as fun, period, because that whole, the battle with Ditka was very enjoyable. But I don't think that you can look at that era and think if Buddy stayed, they would have won another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would just say for me, my biggest regret in my sports life, I'm grateful that I got to see the Jordan Bulls in the 90s, but to not be able to live and experience the 85 Bears.
Barb's fault.
It is Barb's fault.
Bad job by Barb.
Bad job by Barb. But, for everybody in this city that talks about the 85 Bears, and we've met so many Bears fans over the years, not just within Chicago limits or the nation. We've seen them across the world, when we go to London, and the story is time and again, I'm a Bears fan because of the 85 Bears, or I'm a Bears fan because my parents watched the 85 Bears. And so they were somebody that transcended sports, and they found their way into pop culture. They're on, the Super Bowl Shuffle wins a Grammy. They were doing things at that time long before social media has ever existed.
You got to put a lot of Coke in the refrigerator.
Right.
Like
they hit
were,
a different
yes.
stratosphere. And
They did.
so they put Chicago on the map, honestly, before Jordan put Chicago on the map.
It's true. They were the biggest thing that this city has ever seen, without a doubt.
Yeah, I guess I'll defer to you, Carm, because my initial thought on this was you could certainly make the case that they win another one because they really should have won more than one. But yeah, like Braggs, I wasn't there. I wasn't covering the team with Dan Pompei like you were.
Yeah, thank you. Me and Dan should have retired together, but unfortunately for you, I'm still here.
The fedora with the little press thing in it.
I talked to Al Harris about this. He did not make some big, Al was on that defense. He didn't make something like if they had lost Buddy, they would have won it. The quarterback was a big time problem.
Which brings us to our next one, which also has to do with one I'm going to quibble with our own list. I think there's one that should be on here that's not, but we'll get to that in a second because we have to take a time out first. So more coming up on the CHGO Ranks What If episode here, the biggest what ifs in the Chicago Bears history. But first,
looking to buy, sell, trade, or just rip open a pack of cards, you want to do it, Hoge, and you want to do it with our friends at Arena Club. They're changing the hobby with their transparent slab packs, Gregory.
Love a slab pack.
You do. No fee auctions. Check them out. Rip a pack for as low as $25. Hit on a card that's worth tens of thousands of dollars. Every pack has grails that are at least 20 times the price of a pack. That is sweet. Arena Club, the most trusted name in the game, offering that full transparency that you love, showing every card in the pack with the likelihood of pulling each one, so you know exactly what's available before you buy, keeping you informed. And right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/CHGO. Use that code CHGO and check them out at the 45th Annual National Sports Collectors Convention. They'll be there at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center.
That's right. And after you've made some money off your cards, you can use that money to hang out with us in Vegas. That's right. Once again, this season here in week 4 of the regular season, we are heading to Las Vegas with True Fan Travel. We're taking over the Strip for an epic weekend, and you are invited. Join us as the Bears take on the Raiders September 28th. That Sunday, we'll be getting in that Friday. You get a 3-night stay at a premium Vegas resort. Tickets to the game are included. That's important because if you look on secondary markets, trying to get tickets to that game in Vegas are very, very difficult. VIP parties. We're going to have live post-game shows. We're going to be having great events. tailgates before the game. It's going to be an unforgettable experience with us and the CHGO crew as well. Don't gamble on missing the ultimate fan experience. Book your spot now at truefantravel.com and search CHGO Bears. When you do, we cannot wait to see you with us in Vegas.
All right, let's recap what we have so far on our what-ifs in Chicago Bears history. Number 10, what if the Bears had hired Bruce Arians instead of Mark Trestman? Number 9, what if Gale Sayers had stayed healthy? Number 8, what if the Texans lost the game and they gave the Bears the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft? Number 7, what if Jay Cutler didn't get hurt in the NFC Championship game? Number 6, what if Tommy Harris and Mike Brown had played in Super Bowl 41? And number 5 on our list was, what if Buddy Ryan didn't leave to coach the Philadelphia Eagles after the 1985 season? We moved to number 4, and there was a coin flip before the 1970 draft when Terry Bradshaw was the hot quarterback coming out. The Bears lost that coin flip, and they went on to trade that number 2 pick for a bunch of people, we'll just call them. And they didn't make a draft pick till the 3rd round that year. Of course, Terry Bradshaw ended up being pretty good. Went on to win 4 Super Bowls, MVP award during his Hall of Fame Pittsburgh Steelers career. So certainly can understand why this is on the list. So I'm going to quibble with this list, this being on the list a little bit. The thought is good. I mean, it's a coin flip that came down to a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Right.
Which, you guys are aware the Bears they don't have those.
No, they don't.
Here.
Sid Luckman, we love you.
Yeah, so obviously it would have been great to win that coin flip and get Terry Bradshaw. Teams in the 70s, would it really have made that big of a difference? If I were to put one of these like older what-if quarterback situations, I'm thinking the 80s, which we were just talking about, how good that team was, how much they struggled. I mean, not taking anything away from Jim McMahon. It's awesome they got that one. But then after that, like, they really struggled with it, whether it was quarterback play or filling when he was out, who else was coming in and playing. In 1983, they could have drafted Dan Marino. They could have drafted Jim Kelly even. But do you do that 1 year after drafting McMahon? I don't know, probably not. But had they done it, if you think about Dan Marino, he never got his Super Bowl. He could have been playing on the 80s Bears. Like
he literally be considered the GOAT.
That to me is a stronger argument about winning multiple Super Bowls with those 80 teams than what we were just talking about with Buddy Ryan a little while ago. Whereas Bradshaw, I think it's a great what-if scenario. I just think those teams were not good enough, and it wouldn't have made that big of a difference.
So I texted Ed Obradovich, who played on the 69 Bears and went 1-13. It was also on the 63 Bears. It's the last time the Bears won a championship. Well, how much difference would Terry Bradshaw made on the 70s Bears? And his answer was a big fat 0. So that was an interesting little anecdotal opinion. The other thing is that I think you, in another lifetime, were Chicago sports writer Jack Griffin, because the Bears called heads, it went tails. Ed McCaskey was the one calling heads, and Jack Griffin, who worked for the Sun Times, I believe, screamed out, "McCaskey, you're a bum. You couldn't even win a coin flip." Which is
it's a coin toss.
Yeah, which is completely and ridiculously unfair, but that's just amazing. That's how much that they were hated at that point. That they literally it was screamed at Ed McCaskey by a guy who was covering the team, which is not maybe the most professional thing, but very.
I don't think I would fly it today.
Yeah, but to your point, Hoge, like if you go back and look at the 70s. The Steelers were terrible in 69. That's both 1-13. That's why they were in the coin flip. They won 5 games the next year with Bradshaw. Now, their draft picks are unbelievable. In the same year they drafted Terry, they drafted Mel Blount, Hall of Fame defensive back. That was 70. In 71, as they start to build this thing, they draft Jack Ham in the 2nd round, Hall of Famer. In 72, they draft another Hall of Famer in Franco Harris, 13th overall to start it. And then in 73, another Hall of Famer gets selected. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Well, they essentially did what the Bears did in the 80s.
Right. Correct. That's right. They had
so it's just a decade earlier.
Well, in 74, when they finally won it with Bradshaw, their draft was Lynn Swann, first round, Hall of Famer. Jack Lambert, second round, Hall of Famer. Fourth round, John Stallworth, Hall of Famer. Fifth round, center, Mike Webster, Hall of Famer. 4 Hall of Famers in 1 year, and that produced the Steel Curtain alongside Terry Bradshaw. The Bears didn't do that. Terry Bradshaw's lucky that the Bears lost that coin flip.
I mean, this basically tells the story of the Bears franchise and their failure at quarterback and why we have never had sustained success. You're talking about Terry Bradshaw lost on a coin flip. Okay. McCaskey loses the coin flip. You're a bum. Fine. Then next decade, have a chance at Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, as you mentioned. They're not here, right? They win 1 Super Bowl. Okay, great. I'm glad you got to enjoy that. I know you're going to cherish it forever. Then here in my generation, of course, Patrick Mahomes, it's what Bears fans talk about forever. And so it's just time and again where I continue to say we're always on the wrong side of history, and it just never seems to have gone right. And so you're hoping, as we go back to earlier with the Texans game, that the fate of one game that leads to back-to-back years of number 1 picks is what finally gets us over the top with Caleb Williams and finally getting the quarterback right.
Yeah.
All right.
This is one hell of an exercise.
Yeah. What if we didn't have to do this? Then I might be happier. Because this is depressing.
This is rough. Okay. Number 3.
Oh, God.
Whoever came up with this should be fired immediately. We shouldn't even be able to be talking about this. What if the double doink had gone in?
Oh, Jesus.
I'll let Honey Bear take this one. Because if you want to say they're going to win it, I'll listen. Or Hoge.
Oh, I have strong thoughts on this.
Okay.
I don't think they win it.
Okay.
I always go back to, I don't even think they beat the Rams the next week. I think it's on the table because we saw what Bill Belichick did against the Rams in the Super Bowl with Vic Fangio's blueprint. So maybe the blueprint would have worked again. Maybe. But I always go back to an interview Kyle Long did. I don't know if it was a year or 2 later or whatever, but you remember they lost that game to the Eagles. His brother was on the other team. And he asked his brother what he thought if they would have won the Super Bowl had they had the kick gone in. And his brother told him very bluntly, no, you guys weren't physical enough up front. And so, that's always stuck with me. And I'm struggling. Maybe they make it all the way to the Super Bowl. Do you really think they beat Tom Brady and the Patriots in that Super Bowl?
No, and
I don't.
The Eagles lost the next week, but go ahead if you want to think that.
I do think they beat the Rams the next week. It would have been at Rams, whereas the Rams came to Chicago and the cold weather was certainly a part of that. One of the more epic primetime games that I've seen in person at Soldier Field, where the Bears went on to win and just complete dominance by that defense and Keem Hicks and Khalil Mack. And but I also think, there are teams that have that team of destiny and the vibe. And I think there was a nervousness in that game against the Eagles. So, Chris Long says they weren't physical enough. Like, they, at that point, were kind of a runaway train until they got to that game. And they could have pushed that game out of reach so many different times. And they just kept letting the Eagles hang around. And then all of a sudden now it's flipped on its head where the Bears got to try to go back and win this game. But I just feel like if they were able to get through that, they would have been able to take a deep breath and get back to the vibes that had kind of gotten them to that point where club dub and just everything they were. I think they had enough talent. They did lose Eddie Jackson. I think that's something that people forget. When they clinched the division against the Packers during the regular season, losing Eddie Jackson was a big part of that whole thing. So maybe not, but I certainly think they beat the Rams the next week.
I don't want to take anything away from that team because it was a super exciting season. But what annoys me about the game itself is that they didn't really let Mitch throw until the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden when they let it out, the guy, Mitch played well in that fourth quarter. He made some big time throws. I'm like, why do we have to be so conservative all game long there?
That was always Mitch's thing, though. Like when he could just play free in like a 2-minute drill, he was always better.
They were nervous, man.
Yeah.
They were nervous to start that game. And I'll remind you, not only was Eddie Jackson out, but Trey Burton all of a sudden, out of nowhere,
bizarre,
was a mysterious scratch from that game. I mean, it turns out later he had things going on, but at the time, nobody really understood where's our tight end.
Right.
That was a big part of their offense that season.
Well, one thing about if that hadn't happened, you wouldn't have gotten that look on Matt Nagy's face, which has lived forever.
Mm-hmm.
Or Staley falling over.
Oh, yeah, dead Staley.
See, I would argue that a team of destiny doesn't lose to Brock Osweiler. I would argue that a team of destiny doesn't lose to not a very good Giants team in overtime. I just look that they were a fun team. I think they were flawed though still, and I think we saw those flaws come out not only in that game, at times even during that season. And I just find it hard to believe that they would have run the table through the playoffs without something else happening.
Well, you know what? The other thing that would have happened is Cody Parkey would have just missed a kick in a different game because he was, talk about nervous. He had hit the field goal post 4 times in one game during the regular season.
And honestly, that's the best argument against this is you can't win the Super Bowl with a kicker that has sucked all season.
Right.
And honestly, the biggest mistake that they made that year was not waking up and seeing, wait, did my kicker just hit the upright 4 times in one game? Maybe we should work out at some new kickers. Maybe we should bring somebody else in. We see teams like that. They do that all the time.
That's harder than making 4 kicks in one game.
You couldn't do that again if you tried.
No.
Another thing that happened, Dan Hampton wouldn't have thrown his cup of water into the corner of WGN, spilled all over the place, and then gotten done the show, just wanting to absolutely kill Cody Parkey. And
everybody knew it, too. Another game that I was in the stands for, made my good friend Jake fly all the way from Austin, Texas. We hadn't gone to a game in a while. Come up, dude. This is going to be awesome. And that was a tough flight back for Jake. But
Sorry, Jake.
Sorry, Jake. So they make the field goal.
Greg.
Cody makes the field goal. Cody Parkey makes the field goal, but they ice the kicker, right? But that kick barely went in. And so during that entire timeout, television timeout, whatever, the whole stadium is like, you could hear a pin drop. Like, because everyone knew he was going to miss.
That energy matters.
They weren't going to have that luck twice.
Yeah.
And so then the second kick goes away. Maybe he got fingertips on it, maybe not. That was a brutal moment. It was to me, it was the Bartman moment for the Chicago Bears.
Who was the kicker in 2017? You guys remember? Who they jettisoned? And it was Parkey's first year that in 2018.
Well, Cairo was on, I think his first stint with the team was 17, but he got hurt.
Who, regardless.
But you're thinking of Robbie.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think Robbie was, that sounds right. So Robbie was
1 year before that, though.
Regardless, when Cody Parkey got to the Bears in August, they had a whole like come meet the Bears, and it was like a media thing. So I got to be on the field and kick with Cody Parkey and like try to make a field goal.
So it's your fault.
So, but I'm down there, and he's like teaching me, and I'm looking at him like, you don't look very good. Like I literally didn't. I literally didn't, because he like showed me like he kicked one in. I'm like, you're the guy. Like I really like, my instant reaction was like, this guy's not that good.
Well, and remember they asked him like, hey, do you ever go to Soldier Field to practice when he was struggling to the season?
Oh yeah, he had to go down
do
there.
You ever go to Soldier Field to practice kicks? And he was like, no. Hey man, it's a lot different on the lakefront than it is in Lake Forest. You might want to go try that out.
And then they started to do it, and there was helicopters over Soldier Field. That Parkey's down there.
Yeah, and that was crazy.
If you want to know if this is a Bears town, it's when they send the news helicopters to monitor Cody Parkey practicing kicking field goals.
Go see if that bum is working on it.
I remember that because I was doing TV with GN at the time, and I think they were one of the helicopters.
Right.
Yeah.
And
we had like our traffic reporter hovering over Soldier Field in the morning, like. Forget about the traffic on Lakeshore Drive. We got a kicker situation going on here.
He's in there. He's working on it.
So the Eagles win, the Bears lose. Double doink is something that will live in infamy forever. And then Cody Parkey the next day goes on the Today Show.
Well, good for the Today.
That was another. That was amazing.
It's brutal.
What are you doing out here? Okay.
All right, we got 2 left on the list.
Oh, thank God.
But before we get there, we have to take our last break. Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake is firing off fireworks with big savings all month long. Come in today to shop the Freedom to Save sales event. Drive home with $10,000 off MSRP on new Chevrolet models, or check out their selection of over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, they're able to keep their prices competitive, so you know you're getting a great deal. Plus, Ray's Price Promise lets you shop confidently because the price you see online, the price you hear on this show, that is the price you pay when you head in there. So go see for yourself. Visit our partner at their convenient location right off of Route 12 in Fox Lake. If you went too far, you're going to hit the lake and probably see me on the lake. So you can't miss it, though.
Take the Metro, get off, buy a car, go home.
You could do that. Don't miss out on their Freedom to Save sales event going on all month long for $10,000 off MSRP on new Chevrolet models. Shop Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake, raychevrolet.com.
That's right. And when you're driving your Chevy Trax to your next event, make sure you're using the Game Time app. It is the place to go for tickets to concerts, games, any event that you can think of. When Windy City Smokeout last week, you hit up Game Time. Cubs game this weekend against the Red Sox, you're hitting up Game Time. They make getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So the longer you wait, the more you save. And it's just a great app because when you get in there, it's going to show you the hottest deal, the cheapest deals. The most fire deal that you can find is going to be available to you, and they're all-inclusive zone deals, and they have an aerial view of everything that's available. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use the code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
$160 a ticket for Cub Sox.
All right, before we get to the last two on our what-if list on CHGO Rank Week, let's recap what we got so far one last time. Number 10, what if the Bears had hired Bruce Arians instead of Mark Trestman? Well, it would have been a better hire. What if Gale Sayers had stayed healthy? That was number 9. Number 8, what if the Houston Texans lost the game? That gave the Bears the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 draft. What if Jay Cutler didn't get hurt in the NFC Championship game? That was number 7. Number 6, what if Tommy Harris and Mike Brown were able to play in Super Bowl 41? Number 5, what if Buddy Ryan didn't leave to coach the Eagles after 85? Number 4, what if the Bears win the coin flip in 1970 in the draft, and they could have drafted Terry Bradshaw? And number 3, what if the double doink goes in? Sorry about that one. All right. Number 2... I guess this one, Greg, is not depressing. Just this
finally
this was a good thing that happened. I don't know if all Bears fans know about this, but what if George Halas had shown up on time to the SS Eastland, which was a ship that was docked in the Chicago River? He was scheduled to be on it for a work party, and he was late.
It's late.
And the ship, if you go to the Chicago River, you can find it. There's like a big plaque there and like a memorial still. Because I think it was because everybody was standing on like one side of the ship. It capsized and rolled over, and it was actually the deadliest disaster in Chicago history.
844 people were killed in the accident.
So, and that was 1915?
July 24th, 1915.
So
I was 10.
If he gets on that ship, it's better when you do it.
Yeah.
If he's on that ship, Chicago Bears never exist. The NFL maybe never exists.
Right. I mean, it's a crazy story. I think a lot of people in Chicago don't realize, certainly a lot of Bears fans. It was something when we did this exercise and figured out our list, which it wasn't an easy list to hammer down into 10. And when this one was brought to the table, I'm sitting there like, come on, like there's so many other options I'd rather have in here, not knowing the significance or the history behind this. But certainly, yes, it changes the whole trajectory of the Bears and the NFL for that matter.
So his plan that morning was to, supposedly, according to the Tribune, was to meet his best friend Ralph Brizzolara and Ralph's brother Charles, who both boarded the Eastland, and they both survived. So you could, in theory, make the argument that if George is hanging out with his friends and they survived, George Halas founded the NFL. He supposedly was late because he was working on his football game, which he was going to, be ready to dominate at the University of Illinois. I'm here to make the argument for you, George, and the Halas family and the McCaskies, that I think George survives. I think he gets through it. I think he somehow gets off the boat with Ralph and Charles. But bottom line, incredibly fortunate that he was not on the Eastland, and the impact, obviously, of George Halas is why he's on the list here, because without him, you'd think the NFL was created, but it'd be a lot different, and obviously the Bears.
I mean, some type of professional football league exists in some sense, but when you go back to the start of the NFL and how really instrumental George Halas was in all of it, it's kind of crazy to think about how it all could be different if that day had gone differently, which is why it's on this list.
We definitely would have, the saying goes, you never forget the way you thrilled the nation with the T formation. We would have forgotten because we would have never seen the T formation.
We wouldn't have forgotten it because it never happened.
Existed. Thank you.
Halas, just for those brilliant for those who haven't boned up on other George Halas history. He ended up graduating from Illinois, went into the Navy, played briefly for the New York Yankees, moved to Decatur. Get out of here at Decatur, Staley's. I'm going to make you the Chicago Bears. And he was, one of the most iconic names in the history of the NFL. Yeah. To recap George Halas, if you will.
If you've, I've said this before, but if you ever get a chance, sometimes I go back and look at it myself. The scrapbook the Bears put out for their Bears 100 season was phenomenal, and has a lot of that type of information in there. It's so good. It's so worth.
We need to make a movie about this.
Yeah,
it's like George Halas and the Eastland. So you're telling two. It's like Chicago's Titanic.
He's worth a movie.
I think this is movie potential here.
Who plays Virginia? We could start casting this thing. Who plays George Halas?
Well, young Virginia, obviously, right?
Well, right. This is good. We're gonna need more thought on that.
We're gonna workshop this, and then our next show.
What if this show leads to a blockbuster movie? So something good is coming out of all
There we
this.
go.
We'll have Andrew, our guy Andrew, the producer out there, and we'll have Andrew.
Get him on it.
Big Drew.
All right.
Number one.
Finally, number one. This one's not going to be fun, and we've already sort of given it away with that picture on the screen.
Leaving.
What if the Chicago Bears drafted Patrick Mahomes over Mitchell Trubisky?
This will be the last time I ever talk about this.
That kind of looks like a cigarette in his mouth. It's not smoking Jay. It's just his mouth guard. You know the story. The Bears had the number 3 pick. Now, they could have just stayed there and still drafted Mitch. They would have. But, on top of it, they traded up for some reason. And my argument on all that was no one would complain if they traded up for Mahomes. I still maintain that. I said it at the time. I get it turns out they didn't need to trade up to one spot, but I get the logic. If the guy you draft, if you're right on this, the point is always the scouting was the problem, not the trade. Because if they traded up for Mahomes, no one ever would be talking about that part of it.
They would have booed the pick that day, just like they booed it for Trubisky, but we would all have a much different end result.
And then there's always that other part of the argument, and I'm sure we'll get it here in the comments and people watching and listening to this. Well, Mahomes wouldn't have been Mahomes if he had been drafted by the Bears. I think we've seen enough of Mahomes at this point that I think he still would have been pretty damn good. Does he have all the Super Bowl rings? That one I think you can nitpick.
Pushing Tom Brady for GOAT.
I think certainly you can make a strong argument that given how the franchises have been, the Chiefs and Bears. But the counter argument to that argument is that the Chiefs kind of were the Bears before they got Mahomes. They went through many, many years of coming close here and there, but never really having the quarterback, not really figuring it all out. And then they draft Mahomes and everything changes. So I don't know. I tried to briefly make an argument that, if George Halas dies in 1950, that should probably be number one on the list because none of this ever matters. But I do think when you actually get back to the football side of it, how could this list not end with number one being what's got to go down as the biggest mistake in franchise history?
Gregory, I'll let you go deep dive into all the psychology and all the thoughts you have here. But let me just say this. The Bears won 12 games with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback with that defense in 2018, all right? I still think it plays out the same way. I still think they go sign Mike Glenn. I think he comes in here with his, that whole bizarre scene and goes 1-3, and John Fox does what he does, and you end up with Matt Nagy the next year paired with the greatest quarterback in the game. I think the Bears win the Super Bowl in 2018, man. You put Patrick Mahomes on that team, I think that's the best team in the NFL. How many they win from there? I don't know, but I would bet another one at least. So the drought's over. You got the best quarterback in the history of the franchise. We're not talking about 4,000 yards. There is no Caleb Williams in Chicago. Mitch Trubisky, that whole conversation, which have gone around and around and around and around and around, never happens. That's why it's number one on the list, because he was that dude, and he should have been a Bear. They liked him. They didn't even. It was between the two. Deshaun Watson wasn't even considered, which was crazy and incredibly stupid. But they had it.
That's not true. He was on. It wasn't. He wasn't considered. It was. They didn't
interview him.
There was a big gap between.
Right.
Well, they got too fixated on Trubisky, but they did. It went Trubisky, Mahomes, Deshaun.
Bottom line, you put Patrick Mahomes on the 2018 Bears are the best team in the NFL. They win the Super Bowl and maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how many Super Bowls they win and all that, but one thing I do know is what if they had made this move? Well, then they would have ended the quarterback curse here in Chicago. It's that simple. And we're still waiting for that curse to be lifted here. But if the Cubs can break their curse, so can the Bears. And so, I mean, we're just kind of waiting at this point, but it's one of those things where you had Mahomes counting on his fingers, years ago when he beat Chicago,
10.
And it's just like, it's not an exact comparison to when the Bulls had Jordan fall in the lap and Portland passed on him, because how many other teams also passed on Patrick Mahomes? But at the same time, it is the reverse Jordan. And for whatever reason, the Bears are the only team that really feels that. I mean, Nick Wright was on where he was kind of pleading his case of why the Bills should also be included in this list of why that didn't draft Patrick Mahomes, but the Bears continue to get the brunt end of it. And, I think because of their history of failed quarterbacks, that certainly has something to do with it as well. While the Bills have Josh Allen, so be it. So,
Nick's argument is that the Bills can't beat Mahomes right now.
Right.
And so they passed on. So they found their quarterback, but they're still losing to the guy they could have had instead. And they were the ones that they were the ones in that trade with the Chiefs. I think, you can, I think that's a coping mechanism to be like, well, there's other teams passed on them too. You were the team that drafted a quarterback and you moved up for a quarterback.
Right.
And you picked the wrong one.
Right.
And I raised my hand. I spent plenty of time trying to talk myself into Trubisky, and I also had Trubisky ranked ahead of Mahomes myself that year. But the difference was I had none of them that were worth the number 3 pick. I had mid to late round, first round grades on them.
Well, it's big of you to admit that.
Well, it's true. But I also wasn't the one pulling the trigger, and I wasn't the one that traded up.
Because even if that was true, I wouldn't have admitted that. So it's big of you to admit that.
And you also don't get paid. You also don't get paid to do it. Drafting the guy that went 8-5 at Carolina over the dude that had thrown for back-to-back 4,000 yards and beat Alabama to win the national title is. I'm sorry, that's the single stupidest.
Yeah,
that's hard to do.
When you put it in that terms, it's not. It's hard to do, but you have to bring yourself back to the actual tape at Texas Tech and understand why.
Well, I was talking about Watson, but yeah, okay.
Oh, I see. You're right.
That dude.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the safe argument,
that was
28-2. Come on, man. You are really, really cooking yourself, and I'm the smartest guy in the room. I mean, Ryan Pace, if you drafted Mahomes, he's still the general manager of the Chicago Bears. Matt Nagy's probably the Hall of Fame.
He was drafting the next Drew Brees.
But it's why Brett Veach and the Chiefs really deserve a lot of credit for having the balls to draft Mahomes and move up the way that they did for him. Because look, his tape was electric, but it was all over the place. He was free. Like, you think Caleb Williams was freewheeling in college. Like, Patrick Mahomes, he's throwing the ball left-handed. There's all types of crazy stuff going on. There was no guarantee that it was going to work out. You had to really probably talk yourself into the idea that, yeah, we can make this all work, or he's just some ridiculously special talent, which is what it turned out to be. But they did it, and the Bears didn't. So that's why this is number one.
I don't think we got this one wrong. You can quibble with our list all you want. This belongs number one.
All right. This has been,
awful.
I don't know if it was fun.
It wasn't.
It was horrible.
But it was something. So,
what if the Bears are actually good this year? What if, for once, the Chicago Bears actually make Bears fans happy? What if the Chicago Bears finally have their head coach and quarterback combination?
and then they play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
What if we end this program?
It was a pleasure to be here with you, gentlemen.
We are back tomorrow, a Friday noon show, back to our regularly scheduled time.
Thank you to Stephen Nicholas for the expert editing of this program.
Yep. And send all complaints to Tony Gill if you didn't enjoy the process.
Yeah, it's Tony's fault.
Of all this. I think it's fun. It's July.
Oh, I loved it.
I love the idea. I don't love the reality of the conversations.
Next year, we're going to rank things that make us happy.
At least we're not the Portland Trailblazers. That's take that, Portland.
Just a random shot at Portland. I mean, understandably so, but I feel bad for Portland. They should feel bad for us, too. All right. This has been the CHGO Bears Podcast. Become a diehard and enjoy all of our awesome content. We'll be back tomorrow at noon. See you then.
We all silly like the mayor.